All right, welcome back to TwinStick Garage. My name is Mark. This is my 359 Peterbilt. It's a 1979 model. I had it dragged out of a field, towed to my yard, and parked right here in the gravel. And that's kind of where I started this whole truck restoration thing about 5 years ago. And this truck, I got it to a certain point where I was driving it and enjoying it, and I love this truck. I can't say enough good things about it. But then what I did was I pivoted away from it and I started the Smokey and the Bandit restoration. And then I got another truck, a cabover truck, and I started that one. And I kind of left this restoration unfinished. So the fact that the truck's kind of sitting in the gravel where it started, I wanted to share a big announcement today on what I'm going to do next with this truck, and I think you're going to like it. Okay, so first order of business, obviously had to move the truck out of the shop to make room for the tandem sets that my friend Dallas dropped off. But I've got those tandems in place now behind the Duke. So I've cleared out the garage in the middle stall there. So what I want to do is put this truck back inside where it's nice and warm and where it belongs. So we'll fire it up and let it warm up. Now it's been sitting outside probably for 3 weeks now. So we'll see how good it goes. Oh. All right, she's clearing up now a little. Didn't like that very much. Wonder why. Got good oil pressure, so we'll just throttle it up a bit. Oh yeah. That's how a cat's supposed to sound. Because I'd like to actually do an oil change on it before I park it away. So one of the tricks the old timers used to use, and in the manual it says clearly do not do this, is to apply a little bit of brake saver. And then you can see the pressure go up on the brake saver, and you hear it load up. So what that's doing, this is actually an engine retarder, and it's used for slowing yourself down on a hill, similar to the Jake brake. It was on the early A model cats, they had that. So what I'm doing now is I'm putting a load on the engine, and you gotta watch because now you're putting an artificial load, kind of like we're pulling a trailer, but it'll warm the engine up quicker. So as soon as I start getting some water temp and the thermostat opens, I'll go ahead and release that. But that's a good trick to get the engine to warm up nice and quick. Because of course you don't want to drop oil cold. All right, so have you figured out the announcement yet? Well, after years of hemming and hawing, and like I say, pivoting away from working on the truck and just driving it as it is, looks like a kind of a rat rod, the coat of many colors I call it, because you got the original blue cab, the newer blue sleeper, primer around the doors, got an unprimed roof cap, and a white hood that I picked up in Saskatchewan. So this truck is in desperate need of paint. And I know I've said in the past, you know, in previous episodes, I've got just too much on the go. I got the snowman truck, I got the snowman trailer, I'm working on the Duke now. I was gonna leave this truck, but then I thought, you know what? Why not? Why not have 3 active projects going at the same time? So we're gonna put the truck away in the shop, like I say, gonna do an oil change on it, and then we're gonna start this assembly, and with any luck, we'll have this thing painted by summer. Okay, so actually what I'm going to do now is I'll just turn it off because I don't want it running. I'm gonna actually chain up, and I'll explain why. You won't be able to hear me with the truck running, so I figure I'll just turn it off for your sake. So as you can see, I've been plowing the driveway here, or in front of the shop, but I've had a few freeze-thaw cycles, so it's kind of frozen and slippery. And I've also got a bit of a grade here. Now, my cousin was telling me, why don't you clear more trees and extend your driveway out so you don't have such a steep slope. And that would have been practical, but I only got this one little grove of trees, so I'm trying to save what I can. So as a result, I've got this steeper slope, and I just know with those retread tires and no weight on the back, as soon as I go to start backing up, it's just going to spin out, even with the diff lock or interlock in. So I went and picked up a set of chains. Now, I'm a big believer in chains. My dad taught me years ago that with a good set of chains, you could take a two-wheel drive truck into the bush, and as long as you can keep turning those tires, you'll go through anything. So chains are awesome. I put them on everything. I even got them on my side-by-side there. So these are just regular link chains, just singles. I didn't think I needed doubles, and I'm just going to put them, they're just, like I say, the links, not the V-bars, because I figured if I had the V-bars, as soon as I get into the shop, it's going to chew up my concrete. So just two singles. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw them on the outside backs here, and that way when I go to actually back this truck in, I have a little more control and I don't have to take a run at it. Now, chains just work so good in snow and ice, just because obviously they're metal and they grab a lot better than a rubber tire does. That's why you'll see when you go through British Columbia or up in the mountains, it'll say, well, in the old days, it used to say you weren't even allowed to go up there without, on some of those mountain passes, without chains or ice tires. No, other way. And if you ever watch that TV show, oh, what the heck's it called? Highway Through Hell, the Coquihalla Highway from Vancouver up over the mountains there. They're always yelling, the tow truck drivers are always yelling at the guys that don't chain up, because the chain up takes a lot of effort, especially if you're doing both the tandems on both sides, front and rear. And of course, time is money when you're trucking. So a lot of truckers don't like to fart around and put chains on, and they just try and give her. But sometimes just giving her doesn't work. Now, if you really want these tight, what a guy can do is you can set them out on the ground and then drive on them. Or what I do when I'm putting chains on my off-highway stuff is I'll actually jack up the tire and put it on there. But in this case, they don't need to be that tight because I'm obviously just driving into the shop, so I'll just get them snug and that should work. Okay. Something like that. Now these little cams give you, there should be a tool in here. Yeah, there it is. You can tighten these up, and that'll take the slack out of it. So what I might do is pull forward and see if I can't take a link out of each side, because it still seems awfully loose. Yeah, I'm glad I had the chains because it spun a little even with those on. So I'm willing to bet I would have let the clutch out and it would have just danced there. And that's what my dad always says, is chains give you control. So you don't have to take a mad run at something. You can just kind of go slow and just let the chains chew a little and get the job done. Now, I parked the truck over a bit, and my logic there was I wanted to reuse the eyelets from when I painted Snowman. So that's gonna be close. We'll see. That should still work. I guess worst case, I could re-drill them and move them over. Or the tarp comes down and then have something that pushes it over to give me more space to paint. But I think that should work. And then I gotta do the same thing on this side, run those and hang a tarp, because this will be the center paint booth for this year. And then when I actually hang the tarp, I'll be able to paint the Duke as well in this third spot. Look at those tandems. Man, for those of you that aren't patrons, that was a ton of work. It's a hilarious episode, watching me try and push that in there with my Gratz overhead crane by myself. It was a real doozy. Okay, well, now that that's in there, I guess we can kick off the oil change. Okay, so I actually parked the truck back a little bit farther. I kind of compromised between having enough space to walk in behind and still being able to tilt the hood forward with the garage door closed. So I think I found the sweet spot here. So before I get started on this oil change here, I wanted to just highlight a little bit about safety. Obviously there's air brakes on, they're applied, but it never hurts to go the extra mile. So I like to get some wheel chocks and just make sure the truck's not going to roll around while you're underneath it. And the other thing I wanted to cover on safety was make sure when you're underneath your truck, stuff can always fall on you when you're grinding, when you're cutting, when you're dealing with liquids under pressure. Make sure you have some safety glasses, and then I like to get some, these are just disposable rubber gloves for working with oil. Now back in high school when I was in automotives, the teacher would instruct us to just grab a handful of wheel bearing grease and then pack the wheel bearings, and we would just get oil all over our hands. We never wore gloves at all. And I don't know, they say it could be linked to you know, health troubles down the road, but I think it just makes sense. I don't know if that is indeed the case, if you get your hands continuously in oil, if it's a health issue, but I like the fact that this oil is black. It's like paint, so it never hurts to try and keep it off your hands, because otherwise it's difficult to get off. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. I guess I gotta drain the plugs, or open the plugs up and let it drain. Oh, and yeah, before I drain, I wanted to highlight as well that a good practice is to get an oil analysis done. So if you've had oil running for a while, I mean, typical oil changes on a semi-truck is about 25,000 miles. Now that can vary greatly depending on if you're running highway, if you're running in different ambient temperatures, if you go from hot to cold, back to hot, you're running through different climates. If you're running backcountry, dirt roads where you got a lot of dust in the air, that'll obviously shorten the life. So a good way to tell how much mileage you're getting on your oil is to get an oil analysis done. So I go to Finning, which is the cat dealer up here in Canada, and they sell you a sample bottle. You got to prepay for it, and then you try and grab a sample at different points as the oil is draining out of there. Then you just seal it up. It's got a number on there, and you drive it back there and you just throw it in the bin, and then about a week later they email you the oil analysis report, and it'll tell you if there's different metals in the oil, it'll tell you if there's water or coolant in the oil, and it gives kind of a good indication, especially if you trend that over time and you use the same kind of oil and running the truck in the same application and the same type of intervals between. It'll really tell you a lot. So we'll go ahead and open up the drain plugs and then capture a little bit of oil. Now, as you can see, it's just nasty down here. I think the main reason is this is the brake saver in behind here, and it's like a giant torque converter that uses reverse torque converter that uses engine oil, and it kind of spins this big, like I say, it looks like a torque converter, and it helps to load up the engine and helps to slow the truck down when you're trying to drive around if you don't want to use your jakes. So it was a good design, but it leaks like hell. there's a lot of O-rings in here, and you can see these pipes just go in and they just fit in with an O-ring, and it's just a push fit. So I think on the next oil change, I got to put that on the list as something I need to do. I need to actually take a lot of this apart and put new seals in because it's leaking pretty badly. But for now, I just wanted to swap this oil before, like I say, before I park this truck for the next 6 months. Because I just like, holy cow, it's tight. Who tightened this? Oh my goodness. Because I said, because I like putting things away. You do a little maintenance and you put it away. That way when I'm finally ready to drive this truck with new paint, it's ready to go. Oh, come on. Who the hell tightened this? Okay. Well, I got a solution for that. Of course, I got to get a drain pan in here, but I just want to crack these loose. And then I'll roll the pan in. Come on. Come on. Hulk Hogan tightened this up last time? This is ridiculous. There it goes. Okay. The last person was making sure that this wasn't going to leak. Wait a minute, maybe the last person was me. Guess I don't know my own strength. Okay, so there's two drains. You're probably wondering why I'm loosening off two drains. And the first one's the oil pan. That's just the engine oil. And the second one, there's residual oil that gets captured and just sits there in the brake saver. So you want to make sure you get that old oil out of there as well. Wheel in my little oil cart here. Wiggle it over. Okay, now first up, maybe we'll do the brake saver one. Oh, it's already finger tight, good. Now, I think I'm gonna capture the oil from the engine and not necessarily from the brake saver. I mean, it's all the same, I guess. That's one big plug. Here it comes. Okay, so there's what was in the brake saver. Now, is that one figure tight? No. Now, there's two 5-gallon pills. There's 10 gallons of oil in these engines, so there's plenty to drain out. And I'm thinking you don't want to grab the sample right away because, of course, oil sits on top of water. So if there is any water or coolant in your oil, that's what's going to come out first. So it may give you an inaccurate reading. It may give you that you have a really big problem when maybe you only have a little problem. Okay, there we go. See, that's why you wear the gloves. Now, get a little sample. Like I say, then wait a minute. And then we'll get a little more. There, something like that. And we'll see what Finning has to say about the oil that was in there. Getting oil, dripping it everywhere. Yeah, some people are commenting, why don't you get your shop floor done with a epoxy coating or something? And I'm just like, yeah, no, it's not realistic that I'm gonna keep this shop floor in perfect condition with old diesel trucks. It's inevitable that you spill stuff along the way. And you just do your best to clean it up. Okay, just looking at the plug there, and I believe these are magnetic. Yeah, that's magnetic. And I don't see any material on there, which is probably a good thing. Sometimes you'll see a little buildup. Well, I guess there's a bit of buildup there, but I think that's normal. That's just normal wear. So the best thing to do is to clean that magnet off. Probably just general wear. I think eventually, on a long enough timeline, maybe at the next interval, the next time I swap the oil out, what I might do is drop the pan and I might take a look at the mains. Because on these old A blocks, you're supposed to do the mains was it every 20,000 hours? No, maybe it's every 2,000 hours. It's kind of something you got to stay on top of with these old trucks. But what I'm doing is that's why I'm doing the oil analysis, to kind of gauge how much bearing material, babbitt material is in the oil, to try and see if it's really needed right now, or if I can hold off on that. Now, the fact that I got pretty high oil pressure, a friend of mine was saying, yeah, you don't need to worry about it as long as your oil pressure is high. But I think that in combination with the oil analysis, that'll lead a guy to know when it's due. But maybe when I drop the oil pan and roll out the main bearing, so you just take all the connecting rod, you just take all the connecting rod bottom pieces off, unbolt those, and then obviously the bearings in the lower part of the caps, you just take that out, and then the top bearing, you just push the new bearing in, and it rolls the old bearing out as the new bearing goes in and goes up and around the crankshaft journal. So it's actually not that bad. You just got to drop this oil pan out of here, and then you have access to do that. So like I say, that's a project for another day. And then when I do that, that would be a great opportune time to fix all the leaky seals on the brake saver. Okay, we'll let that finish dripping out, and then I guess I got to drain for the oil filter as well. All right, so I got a little pail there to catch the last bit of drippings out of the engine. Now I got to do the filter. Now, actually, one of the viewers actually commented and gave me a bit of a hack, because I've always done it where I just get the wrench and I undo the oil filter, and then it inevitably leaks oil all the way down the filter and all over your hands, in case I'm wearing gloves, but it's very messy. So one of the viewers is commenting to just pound a hole in it and let the oil filter drain that way. So we'll try that. There. Open it up a bit. Nice. Yeah, that's a pretty good little hack. All right, so while that's draining, I guess I better go buy some oil. All right, I'm just here at Traction. I've used these guys a lot. They've really helped me out with all of my builds. And it looks like they got a fresh stock of what I'm looking for. Oh yeah, T5 1540. Let's go in and grab a bunch. So there's T4, T5, and then the good stuff, the T6. Yeah, they got lights and all kinds of good stuff. Wiring, batteries. Yeah, a couple pails of this stuff ought to do. All right, let's get this stuff home and into the truck. Okay, back from Traction, got the oil I needed. So for those that know me, they know that I run nothing but Shell Rotella oil in any of my diesel engines. And typically up till now, what I've only ran is the T4. So that's kind of your entry-level oil. That's just the straight up mineral oil right out of the ground. It's refined. They turn it into a 1540, and then they put a bunch of additives and other good stuff in there to increase longevity in your engines. So again, that's what I've always ran. But what I wanted to try something new today. So T5 is the next level up. So T5, what that is a blend between mineral oil and full synthetic oil. So it's kind of a, I don't know if it's 50-50, but it's a blend. So you get the kind of the best of both worlds. You get the additives and all the benefits of a synthetic oil that helps to increase engine life and increase mileage, because Lord knows I need all the help I can get with this truck. It gets about 3 miles to the gallon. So I'm thinking, again, this is the first time I'm going to try a semi-synthetic blend. You can also get the T6, which is the full synthetic, but I elected to go with the 1540 T5 in this case. So I got a couple pails of it. Like I mentioned, this 3406A cat engine takes about 10 gallons of oil. So I figured I'd give it a try, and yeah, I'm really excited about seeing how well it runs when I put it in there. Now normally a guy would use an oil filter wrench, but I don't have the oil filter wrench that's large enough for this, so I'm going to use the old vice grip trick. Oh, come on. cow. Put this on there. Okay folks, this is what happens when you put your oil filter on too tight. When you have to use a snipe to loosen it off, you tightened it too much, Mark. Oh, that is the first time I've ever done an oil change where I didn't get completely covered with oil. So thanks to the fan that mentioned that, because that is slick. All right, so there's been a lot of controversy where folks will take oil filters, especially ones that mount like this. If they mount upside down, then it's kind of a moot point, but some people actually, they like to fill their oil filters. So what they'll do is they'll get the jug of oil and they'll fill it up through the middle there and then put the oil filter on. Because the logic, I guess, is that you don't have to wait for the oil pump to pump oil, fill up the oil filter, and then start delivering it to your engine. But the way I look at it is you're not going to start it up and floor it right away. There's going to be some oil still in there because hopefully you warm the engine up before you actually drain the oil. And from what I've read in the CAT manuals, you actually leave this empty and then it fills up and then just pumps oil around the engine as needed without waiting too long. The idea behind filling the oil, which doesn't make sense and a lot of people get upset about, is the fact that oil actually goes in through these little holes. It goes through the filter portion, then goes to the center and then up the center and then into the engine. So this is actually an exit port for the clean oil. So if you just pour oil out of the jug, you can actually end up pouring dirt and contaminants in there and then get that cycling around your engine. So I'm going to leave it empty because the logic makes sense to me. And again, that's what I read somewhere in the manual. Now what I will do is I'm going to put a little dab of oil on the rubber seal there, the rubber ring, because that is a good practice. You want to do that because that keeps it from seizing to the face there and hopefully makes it easier to remove the next time you go to swap it. Now, the instructions on here say you tighten it and then once it makes contact, you tighten it 1 1/4 turns. So for once we're going to follow the instructions, so hopefully it doesn't get that as tight as it was last time. Get on there. Okay, so there's our mark. So we'll do 1 1/4 turn to tighten. See how the old dipstick looks? Dipstick holding a dipstick. Yeah, that's the last time you'll see it clean. As soon as this truck starts, instant black. Yeah, so it took probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 seconds for it to get oil pressure on the gauge there. So that was the time it took. It was running, I guess you could say it was running dry, but again, there should be enough residual oil on the bearings to hopefully not do too much damage. So I don't see any leaking coming out of the oil filter. No leaks out of the engine. Sweet. All right, I guess that's it for the oil change. All right. So as I was saying, this is where it's going to be parked for the next little while. Now, I guess I always need motivation. Either I'm trying to get something ready for the Let's Go truck show, or I got a deadline of some sort. So I guess in this case, my motivation will be once I start tearing all this down, because I got to take all the chrome off. I want to take the mirrors off, the cans, the pipes, the lights, all that stuff, the visor, and then I'm going to have to start sanding. There's some body work that needs doing. I've got some dents on the, well, that one's actually not too bad. On this side though, it's pretty banged up. So we need to do some work there. But yeah, it's like I was saying, my motivation is going to be that I want to drive this truck again this summer. I don't want this to get torn down, sanded down, and then never drive it again until whatever it is, 2024. So that's going to be it. I'm going to be hitting this truck hard. I'm going to try and get it painted, try and get it on the road by summer is the goal. Definitely have it at the Let's Go show. And probably the last question people are going to ask in the comments down below, or the biggest question, is going to be, what color are you going to paint the truck? So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get this same color here. This is called Sovereign Blue, and it's kind of a metallic blue. And I really dig the color. It's actually a PACCAR or Peterbilt Kenworth color. So I'm going to go with that. So I'm going to sand the whole truck down, prime it, do all the body work, prime it, block sand it, and then paint it entirely in that color. And then I want to do some, I'm thinking probably some white stripes up over the top of the bunk there, and then down at an angle, and then probably all the way forward. I don't know if they'll cross over or something, but some kind of a 70s vibe. And I'm going to get that done as a wrap. So I'm just going to do a single stage like I did on Snowman, do the nice Sovereign Blue all the way around. I'll probably have to wet sand it because, again, I'm not a professional painter. So I'll probably have to cut and buff and get rid of all the, if there's any drips or orange peel like I had on Snowman. But Snowman turned out good. So that's definitely given me the confidence to tackle this project. So yeah, that's it. Hope you liked the episode. Hope you liked the announcement. Hope you learned something on the oil change. And thanks to Shell Rotella. They make a great product. I know this cat's going to be happy when I finally get it back on the road. Like I say, hopefully before the end of summer. Oh yeah, and don't ever forget, if you got it, a trucker brought it.